In this video series, I work through a math problem or problems each video. Taking a square root of a number is the opposite process from squaring a number. The square root takes a number y and looks for a number x when squared is equal to y. Note that for any positive number y, we can think of two x values whose squares are equal to y. One positive and one negative. The square root was defined to take only the positive x value. If we want the negative x value, we just write a minus sign in front of the square root operator. To help us work with the square root operator, we often use the absolute value operator, which always results in a non-negative real number. Let's take a look at the given problems. Simplify the following expressions. We first have the square root of 81y squared. 81y squared is 81 multiplied by y squared, so this is a single term. And when we have a single term under the square root, we can go ahead and take the square root of the number and the variable part separately. So the square root of 81 is equal to 9. Now remember that we need to make sure we just keep the positive square root. And then when we take the square root of y squared, we need to make sure that the number that we end up with is positive. So we write the absolute operator around y, and we get 9 multiplied by the absolute value of y. Next, we have the square root of 100x cubed. Once again, we have a single term, so we take the square root of 100, which is equal to 10. And x cubed can be thought of as x squared multiplied by x. The square root of x squared is equal to the absolute value of x. So we get 10 multiplied by the absolute value of x multiplied by the square root of x. And finally, we have 225 multiplied by z to the fourth power, and we take the square root of that term. The square root of 225 is equal to 15, and z to the fourth power is z squared squared. So if we follow the examples of the earlier examples, we get the absolute value of z squared. But z squared, whenever we square a number, we already end up with either a 0 or a positive number. And since the purpose of writing the absolute value around the variable or the variables was to make sure that this part ended up being a non-negative number. And since z squared is already non-negative, this absolute value is redundant. So we can go ahead and leave it off and write this expression as 15 z squared.